Hello and welcome to the latest TNT panel, being recorded on Tuesday the 7th of May at 6 o'clock in the evening, UK time. The topic for today is children's and animals. And as you can see, there's no one joining me today. So I had prepared some research on children and animals in literature. So here's what I found. In film and TV, they say never work with children or animals because both can be unpredictable. But in fiction, we shouldn't kill them off. Henry, there, in My Dog Detective, is a talking dog. And he's inspired by Family Guy's Brian. I'll put a link in the notes. And he and baby Stewie are the focus of the series. There is a family. There's Pete Griffin, the daughter Meg, who's voiced by the American actress Mila Kunis, and their wife and I can't remember there's an older son. And their creator, Seth McFarlane, is also responsible for American Dad, Cleveland Show, and co-wrote, produced everything for the Talking Teddy Bear TED series, films and series. So initially I searched for children featured in literature, and one of the results, again I'll put the link in the notes, was for the 10 most badass literary children. Position 2 was Harry Potter, which surprised me in a way because I don't really consider him, but I've not read the books, I've only seen the early films, wouldn't really consider him badass. Third was Hermione Granger, and I know she's quite feisty, so good on her. Other authors mentioned in the list were Stephen King a couple of times, Michael Chabon, Markus Zusak, Philip Pullman, C.S. Lewis, so obviously a fantasy theme. Although last on the list was Harper Lee's Scout Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. Now I mentioned earlier on about not killing off animals or children in books, and Stephen Booth, who I've met a few times, lovely chap who writes books set in Derbyshire. In one of his books, he had a cat die of old age, and apparently got more emails, letters perhaps back in the day via his publisher for an animal dying. It was old age, and unfortunately with old age there's not a lot you can do about it. But in Family Guy, Brian in one episode was run over, killed off, and apparently they had so many people distraught, and really it didn't make sense because he and Stewie, the baby, were linchpins of the series, so it didn't make sense. So anyway, I think they had it all a dream and brought him back, which was great. So be careful when you're writing children and animals in your books, what you do to them, whether you do nasty things, but readers don't like having nasty things done to children and animals in books. I then did a search for, as I said, children featured in literature. And there was another one that came up with another link that came up, which I'll put in the notes, the 20 greatest children's book characters. So here we have a mix of children and animals. Hermione was there, no mention of Harry. And then the animals were the Jungle Book's Baloo, Peanuts, Snoopy, and my husband Tim is building I look after the local book swap libraries, which is why I set up Self Pub Fest, actually, because we have such a great reading community here in Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire, that I thought it would be lovely to help promote, and I'm self-published, that would help promote self-published authors and get the local reading community involved with local authors. So he's building me a book swap library in the shape of Snoopy's kennel, which would be very sweet. So I bought some Snoopy stickers to stick on the back of the glass. And then there was also the tiger who came to tea. And I'd already thought when I was thinking about this episode, this session, about how the tiger in the life of Pi, and it's the son who's called Pi, how much he features, certainly when Pi is an adult, how much he features in the book. And on the front cover is Pi and the tiger in a boat. So that is a animal is a big feature of that book and film. Other humans on the list, Alice in Wonderland, and animals obviously feature very heavily, the Cheshire Cat and so on in those books. And then we've got the Mad Hatter, Rabbit, and so on and so forth. Then there's also Tintin's Captain Haddock. So he's an adult in the Tintin series. No mention of Snowy, the dog. And another child, Pippi Longstocking. And then also Winnie the Pooh's Twiglet. I was thinking about Winnie the Pooh as they're very human children. And I know children are human. Human animals. Winnie the Pooh, Twiglet is in this list. Although Eeyore is my favourite, partially because he's purple. And one of my favourite colours is purple. Teal is another one. And so Eeyore is very misunderstood and I think not misrepresented. That's not the right word, but he's such an interesting character from my point of view. And then Paddington, who's had a resurgence in recent years with the films with Hugh Bonneville and Hugh Grant. And aren't they all endearing, all these animals in literature? Now, conflict, when you're writing for children, is going to be less critical to a child than an adult. But you still want to have a baddie or a bad situation, whether it's something really trivial like a lost sock to monsters under the bed. And what if the child finds out that the monster isn't actually that scary? Which fictional children or animals do you remember from your childhood? I've mentioned some there. Peanuts featured very heavily in my upbringing. Loved Snoopy, loved Charlie Brown, Woodstock, Lucy, Linus, and so on and so forth. All those characters from Peanuts. And the thing about children, especially in cartoons, children and animals, is that they do appeal to a wide range of adults and children. Harry Potter books had 2 book covers, one aimed at children, one aimed at adults. Shrek, the film series Shrek, is about technically a human in the form that is Shrek and the ogre. But they're all relatable to children. Obviously, some of the humour the children won't necessarily get. There is humour that adults, sort of the play on words, the double entendre that we see in those movies. So which do you remember from your childhood, and which children and animals do you include children and animals in your writing? Now, books tend to be fiction, tends to be aimed at adult fiction, tends to be aimed at adults. But children, families are in a lot of stories. Very, I wouldn't say rarely, but family orientated stories are what people relate to. Even if they don't have children, I don't have children, but I also write for children. And I read out in one of the episodes on a Saturday, where some of us read out our short stories. I read out 3 stories aimed at, I think one was Willow, that was the girls. Dan, I think, was the boy, so Detective Dan, Willow's kind of adventure. And then I had one called Treasures and Pleasures, where it was aimed at non-binary. So instead of he or she, it was they and their and them. And so that's something to think about now when you're writing for children and for to include children in your stories is that we are in a different era where we want to be inclusive and we want to have different various kind of animals. And it's really been fun for me, and I'm still writing them, so it's not past tense, to write stories where Henry, my dog, a dog detective, is very human, and he's very interested in the world around him. There's one scene where Gwyn, who's on the cover there, she's baking a shepherd's pie, and Henry wants to know how many shepherds go in the shepherd's pie. And then later on in the book, she's creating a cottage pie, and he wants to know how many shepherds live in the cottage. And so you can have great fun because children and animals are innocent. Give them voices, the animals. They're very innocent, and they look at life in a very different way to us. And I think, and also when you're writing for children, I have a list of 4 E's. Whatever kind of book, certainly fiction that we're reading, we want to be entertained. So in any kind of, with crime, any genre, we want to be entertained. We want to feel some kind of emotion. So as we go through the story, the saying is put your character up a tree and throw rocks at them. And you want to know that they're okay. We know Harry Potter was in a difficult situation, and we want him by the end to be okay and overcome his insecurities, his, in theory, inabilities. He's learning how to become a wizard. And so as a reader, we're taking the journey with them. And it's lovely that they have gone on a journey. So at the beginning, they've got a problem, or they're not sure how to do something, or they have a task. In Lord of the Rings, they have a task to fulfill. And with help along the way, but the journey is theirs to overcome, then they succeed by the end of it. So we feel delight in the fact that they've overcome this problem. They've got to where they need to be. So that is the emotion. So we've been entertained, we've felt some kind of emotion, and by the end of a crime novel, we should know who the baddie is and that they've got their comeuppance. So that's that kind of, we're pleased in that respect. And then also we've learned, regardless of whether it's a story for children or a story for adult, we want to learn something along the way. We might aim to read, or specifically read, stories that set in a world that we don't necessarily know, so that we've learned skills. The character may have developed skills, or like Liam Neeson in Taken has a certain set of skills. So we are educated. But when you're writing, you don't want to have somebody. There are readers who love to sit with a dictionary and they stop and they look up a certain word. But when I'm editing, that's my day job, when I'm editing a book, I say that you need the context. So if there's a complicated word, absolutely put it in. But the reader shouldn't need to go to a dictionary to understand what the word means, because they have the context. We also want an escape. So children will read about, if they're being bullied, they want to read, either they don't want to read books about bullies because it's too close to home, or they want to because they will find out that they need to stand up to the bullies, and by the end everything will be fine. And so we have some form of escape. We read crime novels because we might be going through a tough time, and there's somebody in the book who's going through a tougher time. Yes, it's fiction, but they're going through a tougher time. And so there's an escape from either our traumatic life or our ordinary life that we escape from into fiction. So do write about children and animals, because we have children. I don't have children. I have a dog child. He is my Gus, aka Lester Dree, you're weird, and he can be sometimes. is my furry baby, as they say. Well, he's 14 and a half. He's going to be 15 in November. And so do include children and animals because it is relatable. We want books to be relatable. So do include them in your stories. And if you do have to kill them off, do it, say, tactfully. But if there is a necessity, then if it's for the story, then handle with care. So, which fictional children and animals do you remember from your childhood? Do leave a comment. And which do you include in your writing? If people would like to revisit this topic, then I will add it. I think we're now up to July or August for topics. But if you'd like to join me for this topic again, then let me know. Thank you.